Hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on a classic wooden motor cruiser, very much like the one I'm on right now, in and around Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing it and others up for some pretty ambitious cruising. If that's the sort of thing that you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to have you. Well, and we're finally off cruising through the Southern Gulf Islands, and it's going to be a really great and welcome break, having been a pretty busy couple of weeks. And of course, we're going to take you along on that whole trip, but not this week. We're going to jump back in time and catch up with the last few things I wanted to get done on Poem before we headed out here, because as soon as we get back from this cruise, we're straight off to the festivals. Well, I did a little quick and dirty upholstery with some old material I had lying around actually since my Land Rover days. Anyway, just stapled to a piece of door skin. Anyway, it'll do for a while. It tidies things up a little bit. And this lovely little Tiffany I've been waiting to put here for quite some time. All right, so cozy. I think it's time for the front window stays. You'll remember that I was gifted these lovely vintage household but brass window stays that are just going to be perfect for this, and I have a match set. In fact, I have a total of 4. So the trick is there's 2 ways to put a stay on. So as it comes down, it actually swings upwards like that, or if it's below, as it comes down, it actually swings downward like that. So getting it just right is relatively critical. It's one thing to have the stay hold it structurally really well at the wide open position, which is where I'll have it most of the time. But it's also nice to be able to have it open just a little bit, just to get a little ventilation. Let's say it was drizzling rain or something. Anyway, and you don't want too much or too little mechanical advantage against this point. So getting this right is a bit precarious. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with one side fixed, at least for now. In other words, reduce the variables to 1. In other words, how about I find a piece of edge of this tape? So in other words, at least to get started, I'm going to fix a point on the window, basically there. So if I wanted the window this far open at full extension, the bottom of the stay would go about here. So let me just put a mark there. Exactly. And now I'll close the window. You guys can watch from outside. And I'll see that the stay will swing down. Right like that. Very tidy. Very tidy. Now, marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. I love it. Okay, so now this end is pretty simple. It's just 2 screw holes. This end, 2 screw holes, but also a little, I'm going to have to drill a little clearance hole for the actual bushing for the bearing shaft here. So let's get some drills out and get started with that. This isn't the least bit unnerving. I'm using a brad point bit to make the very cleanest cut possible. I didn't cut through either edge. Very nice, very nice. Happily, I have some lovely bronze screws that I was gifted recently. Looks so nice. Okay, so in this direction, I'm actually going to do this with the window closed so that I get a perfect alignment in this direction. Fabulous. Take that stay out, close it, oh, beautiful, open it, and tighten it. I freaking love these. And and they're pretty well perfectly lined up. Oh, yeah. And we have Geordie back in the shed. You can see it's been dive bombed by some gulls. Holy moly. Okay, so windlass juggling again. Been following along, you may recognize this, well, 2-year-old Plath windlass, which is absolutely delightful. Was on Poem when I got it, and I imagined, because it's a bit too big for Poem, that it would end up being the windlass on Geordie, and it's a fantastic windlass. However, I think I'm going to put it back on, well, I know I'm going to put it back on Poem. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. And eventually, Geordie will get the McMurray windlass that I bought for Poem. Yes, it's a used windlass, but I think it's in absolutely perfect condition. I can't confirm this, but I believe it's more powerful. It's much faster. And in some ways, I think it's more period appropriate for Geordie. Poem, what is period appropriate for Poem? Pulling it by hand, or maybe a hand windlass. So anyway, this will work out just fine. And of course, Poem is already fully set up for it, so it's a drop in. And so we're gonna get on with that. First things first, get the anchor off. Okay, next I'm gonna go inside, should have done it before, and disconnect the main power and all the wiring for it so I can start to pull this up and out. But perhaps before that, I'll get these switches set up to come out because I'm not quite sure how I wired them. I can't remember. These are not lovely switches. If you've been following along, you know that I had a shorting out problem with them of some sort when I first installed the anchor on Geordie. In any event, they do close the holes in the deck of Poem, and that will be useful. Beauty. Love these ratchet spanners, Patrick. Whew. Am I kidding? I don't want to pull too hard on this, but I think I can give it a little tweak. There we go. Now I've left one bolt in because it I have to take all of this arrangement off the gypsy and the wheel to get it out, so I'm just going to slide it right back down. Lift with your legs, Peter, not with your back. This is a bloody heavy thing. Oh, yeah, that's heavy. Okay, now you, let's go. Oh, yes. Okay, here we go. So, Poem is currently on the mooring ball. Zephyrus is at anchor. I'm now going to take Geordie back out and raft up with Poem on the ball, and then transfer the ball from Poem to Geordie so that I can leave Geordie on the ball, mooring ball is what I mean by that, and bring Poem in here to put the windlass on. Yikes. All right, that's done. Now just to transfer the ball over from one boat to the other. All right, first some blower. Working on a plan of action here. Of course, the windlass was already installed here, so it should go pretty easy. Of course, it is wonderfully convenient to be able to do this in a boat shed standing on a dock. You know, I'm not going to get too excited about trying to fish this chain up through it. I'll simply just drop a string back down later and deal with it. Yeah. Okay. Nothing much to do but drop it in. There we go. Okay, I'm going to say it's going to go just fine. So I'm going to put the butyl tape on now, maybe a little bit lower. Woohoo, there we go. Woohoo! I gotta say, this is looking pretty nice on this varnished deck. Very, very, very nice. Oh, man. Yeah. I'm gonna start here. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to slide the rest of the bolts in. Little butyl under the washer. Now, of course, there'll be lots of squeeze out from this little project, but I would rather a little squeeze out that I can clean up than a leak. Well, it's a totally different relationship. Teeny, 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 tiny. For the next little while, the entire forecastle on Pome is going to effectively be a chain locker. That's for a couple of reasons. One is that I didn't have any time to actually do any work down here, but the other thing is that this deck leaks like a sieve. If you've been following along, you know I need to recaulk it, and I didn't have time for that. The varnish on it is simply to keep it from deteriorating in this season's sun. So it's not much bigger than a chain locker anyway. All right, let's put some of these bolts on. Nuts on. Okay, and the relay and wiring harness. And with it all sorted out below, get some butyl tape under these switches. And we're getting pretty close, with the exception of the bow roller. Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but first we're going to make the windlass spin. Yeah. Let's see if I can weasel the chain up out of here. The way I've got it linked into this. Yes, excellent. Set that aside for now. All right, I've set the breaker. Yes! Oh, I love it. You have to admit, this windlass, it just has a lovely sound to it. The gear bearing assembly is just very nice. It has another very nice feature in that it stops instantly when you release the switch, which the McMurrays do not. And for the ultimate in anchoring convenience, especially with such a tiny foredeck. Okay. Now a bow roller. Okay, for a bow roller, we have this stainless steel behemoth folding anchor bow roller, which in all honesty, I did recommend for Lloyd to buy because actually I have the same one on Geordie and it's very effective, not very attractive, as you can plainly see. However, there are some times when function trumps form, although in my life, that's not very often. So I had planned to get rid of this, and I found on Craigslist a lovely little bronze bow roller. Did I say little? It's lovely. It's currently chrome plated. I could easily deplate it and it would be bronze. However, I believe it is just too small to do what I want to do here. It's very, very tempting to install it. and sort of see how it works. But the boat has to be 100% super reliable, functional over the next 2 weeks. For instance, it's going to Victoria, and then it's going to the United States, and I need to be able to anchor safely and reliably. So if I'm going to play with this, I'm going to play with this in the future. And I am going to shame myself at these two beautiful classic wooden boat festivals with the stainless steel behemoth. Safety, safety, always safety, Peter. The slight consolation is that the holes are already in place for this, and so there's no real new damage done. There we go. All right, well, this just got a lot more complicated. This is 5/16 chain, and the chain on Geordie and the chain that came with this windlass is 5/16 chain, but it's a different chain. And I don't know a lot about chain, but that's no problem. All I have to do now is transfer the 300 feet of chain from Geordie to here. And buy all new chain for Geordie next year. Gee, oh, God, oh, painful, painful. Well, the upside is I now have 300 feet of chain on Poem. Okay. The downside is I gotta pull it all out and pull it all out of Geordie as well. Oh yes, 100 feet of chain and 200 feet of road. Which of course the bitter end is attached. And released, and up it comes. Okay, well, you know, to tell you the truth, I had actually considered using the chain that was specifically designed for this windlass. Now, to be fully transparent, when Lloyd bought this windlass, it was custom, the gypsy on it was custom made for the chain that is going back on it, the 300 feet of chain. And I felt a kind of obligation because when they built this windlass, they had Lloyd send a foot of the chain that it was going to be used, and they custom machined that or grounded or for exactly that chain. So I'm reuniting the proper chain with the proper windlass. 300 feet of chain is heavy for the front of Poem, quite heavy. Okay, now it seems to pick up 300 feet of that chain and place it in the bottom of the dinghy may seem a bit ambitious, but I've done it already, so should be just fine. All right. Doing all this in the middle of a massive British Columbia heat wave. And when you're out in the breeze, it's not bad, but in the shed, it's been hot. All right, I've got the dinghy positioned in such a way I can drop the chain straight in. Let's get to it. Pulling the chain up with chain snubber. Piece of cake. Now, some of you may be a little annoyed I'm going to let this drag down over the rub rail. Well, some of you may also be aware that I'm completely replacing the rub rail next year, so no real harm. And there we go. All right, yes, that's pretty heavy up there. Okay. Oh, jeez, it's hot. Okay, it might be tempting to say, Peter, why did you park the dinghy so far away from the boat? Well, the reason for that is that not only am I actually quite grateful to be transferring this chain to Poem, because it's a lovely chain, it's currently marked off every 10 meters with blue paint and of course red at the very end. And I find that hard to see, especially as it's wearing off. So I'm going to switch the system over to Imperial every 50 feet with colored zip ties. And this gives me the opportunity to spread the chain all the way down the dock here and establish those zip ties. Two birds at one stone. But it's hot. Well, that's not bad. 12 times 25 plus an extra 10, 12 feet or so. So there's actually about 312 feet here, which is nice. Okay, let's get some zip ties on here. All right, so let's see, what do we got? Okay, excellent. Now, without getting too crazy about this, it gets a little complicated because I had the extra 12 feet. I actually have to start measuring from here. So that's fine. I should be able to figure that out. Okay. So what I'm going to end up doing is putting a warning at exactly 300. But knowing that I have more than 300 feet of chain, I have another 12 feet. I'll put a couple more warnings beyond that. So here goes. I'm not going to zip it in yet until I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing. Okay, so let's get started from the top. From here to here is 25 feet. From here to here is 50. So this gets the first 50 marker. And I'm not going to zip it yet in case I'm making a mistake. I'm just going to tuck it in, just like that. There to there is 75. There to there is 100 feet. 100 is the blue. So I'll mark that and not zip it just yet. Okay, I know I just need to skip 2 and I'm 50 feet again. And that is 150 feet. Skip 2 and this is 200 feet. 250 comes to here, and 300 comes to here, giving me 12 more feet of chain before I actually run off the windlass. Excellent, I really like this. Okay, so let's zip these. Now, I'm zipping them on arbitrary lengths. There are 4 possible positions that will put the zip tie up in the air when it comes over the top of the windlass. If it's sitting in the windlass like this, it will. If it's sitting in the windlass like this, you will hide it. So I'm just putting on 1 now, and in time, as they come up over the windlass, when I find some suitable location, I will stop and replace them with zip ties that point upwards. Okay, this is going very well. I put a single red at 10 feet, and I'm going to put 2 reds at 5 feet, trying to encourage me not to run the anchor up over the deck. Whew, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's so nice just to know exactly how much chain you have down. All right then, time to get this chain in the chain locker. This is going to be a project. Well, hello there and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week, coming to you this week from the cozy cockpit of MV Zephyrus here in Ganges Harbor on Salt Spring Island. And yes, we are finally cruising. Okay, let's go straight to the beer from Salt Spring Brewery. How appropriate is their Heather Pale Ale? And I've had this before. This is a splendid beer. Well, it has been so lovely to get out and get some cruising done. We've been around the Southern Gulf Islands, in and out of a few places. Yeah, getting a little bit of work done here and there, but it's a lovely, lovely way to spend some time. All right then, I'm going to pour this with a little more vigor at the end because I did receive some comments that I am a little hesitant to bring up a little bit of froth in the edge of my beer. So anyway, here we go. Heather Pale Ale from the Salt Spring Island Brewery. Just love that beer. Absolutely just love that beer. Perfect. It is overcast and also a little bit smoky still from all these bloody wildfires that the whole planet is suffering from. I'm very aware. All right, let's jump straight to last week's winner of a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, and that individual is JP-OF5WK. So JP-OF5WK, get a hold of me. You've won a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. Congratulations. And while we're at the paperwork, I would like to send a great thanks out to 2 new Patreons. David Rooney, cheers, and thanks so much for coming aboard. As well as Charlie McDonald, thank you as well for coming aboard. And that pretty much sums up, other than a word of the week, and I think it is probably blatantly obvious because it's certainly the word I've used more than any other word in this episode, and that is chain. Chain. I've certainly never used it before. You'll find something to do with it. Cheers, you know what to do with it. See you next week or possibly sooner.